This afternoon at an Air Force base in California, the President got an eyewitness view of our space-age defenses.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, stand by. Lift off.
This blast-off of an Atlas missile was John F. Kennedy's first on-the-scene view of a missile launching, the first, in fact, for any American president. It happened at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, a space-age military base, a site at which military missiles now stand leashed but ready. It was the climax this afternoon of the President's visit to California, a trip in which space-age readiness was the keynote. Readiness to defend our security if threatened, but readiness still to muzzle our weapons if the promise of peace should brighten. This was the President's message today from a launching stand and a speaker's stand.
75.
The President's visit to California. It happened today. Tonight, you're an eyewitness. Your correspondent, Walter Cronkite.
Eyewitness, the big news of the week. Tonight, witness, the President at the missile sites. Brought to you by Cyanamid, makers of important products for you, your home, your health, and the major industries that serve your needs.
For the President in California, this was a day of contrast. The schedule that reached this noisy climax at a launching pad had begun in academic quiet on a college campus. We'll take you to that scene in a moment after this message.
150.
The President's first visit to an operational missile base. Cape Canaveral on the other side of the continent is solely for research and development. Vandenberg in the coastal hills 160 miles north of Los Angeles, Vandenberg is part of our actual defenses. In this vast complex are the launching pads for missiles ready to do the ugly business of war, and the headquarters of the command that teaches men to fire them. Here, the President sees one of the latest weapons in our space-age arsenal, the Air Force's solid-fueled Minuteman. It nests in a kind of underground silo, the form of installation in which it will be emplaced at locations across the United States. This bird, which the President has seen, is not fueled, a factor for the President's safety. The first of those Minuteman defense sites already has been picked out. It's to be in Montana at Malmstrom Air Force Base near Great Falls. This, incidentally, is the first time that the Minuteman rocket has been seen on television in its nesting place. At every point in his visit, the President was given exhaustive briefings by Air Force officials. The Air Force obviously attaching great importance to this visit and great hopes for enlisting the President's support behind its missile programs. The Minuteman has a number of arguments in its favor as against some other missiles: relative cheapness, portability, that is smaller than other missiles. Also, that solid fuel factor means the missile can be kept more easily. Occasionally in these pictures you see alongside the President in the background, not in this immediate scene, Secretary of Defense McNamara, who made the trip with the President today and indeed received an honorary degree himself at his old alma mater, the University of California. Along with Air Force officers, some of the crew members helped fill the President in. You'll see them too in a moment. There's Secretary McNamara with the President. The Minuteman has its strong backers not only among these Air Force officers you see here, but also within the President's cabinet. McNamara himself is enthusiastic about the particular weapon. big device there on the right is part of the complex which loads the Minuteman into the silo. The device drops the Minuteman into the silo, the position which it rests in, until ready to fire. This protected position also argues in the Minuteman's favor. And over to the side, the hatch down which the firing crew can descend into the silo to service the Minuteman once it is below ground. These below ground positions protecting our missiles against anything but a direct hit from the enemy. The President's driving off now from the Minuteman site, and next stop on his inspection trip, a look at an underground missile launch control center. Now, this is a complex designed to fire the Titan ICBM, a liquid-fueled missile, not yet operational, but very close to the operational stage. Such is the time lag in producing these weapons that while Titan 1 is not yet operational, just about to be, the first Titan 2 already has been fired in its research and development program, which will take another couple of years before it goes operational. It will then be one of the most powerful of all of our rockets. Air Force crewmen work here constantly learning the complicated procedures for firing any of the 3 missiles emplaced in silos around this blockhouse into which the President and Secretary McNamara now go. The missiles directed from this blockhouse are protected by their concrete silos until just before launch time. Then they are raised to a firing position. The entire complex lies deep underground. Further protection from that unlikely direct hit. This is primarily a training installation for the missile crewmen, for it's a very complicated business that they have to learn here. But in the blockhouse, the President will see an exact replica of the combat blockhouses for this type of missile being spotted all over the country. Inside, a mass of instruments he sees now, the instruments to enable the crew to fire their weapons by remote control. No one's allowed above ground anywhere near the Titans at launch time. TV monitors that you saw there a moment ago and that will now be pointed out to him are the eyes of the launch crew, advising them continually of the status of the countdown, telling what the missile looks like at any moment. Firing consoles are manned at launch time by the Air Force crewmen. For today's inspection, the console's empty, the missile men lined up instead to meet their commander-in-chief. Those men in the background, the white uniforms, are not scientists or engineers. They're airmen and officers, missile combat crewmen, learning the latest of the military sciences. For the President, a briefing on the mass of electronic equipment from Air Force General Thomas Powers, the commander of the Strategic Air Forces, the organization that will fire our ICBMs. The President's question, what are all the TV monitors for? And from General Powers, an explanation of the equipment, the consoles, the jobs of the combat crewmen. Part of this briefing General Powers gave in public. A later part of it was done with no cameras present. The high point, of course, the presidential tour of Vandenberg, was that successful launching of the Atlas missile, which you saw a while ago. The launch crew members received the personal congratulations of the President, and afterwards CBS News correspondent Robert Pierpoint, accompanying the President, had some questions for the crew members.
Major Simonson, as I understand it, you're the commander of this 11-man launch crew that launched that Atlas, and it looked like a beautifully successful launch. Was it?
Yes, sir. It was a very good launch. We were right in the target area.
What did you tell the President about it?
I was very thrilled, of course, to be able to launch a missile for the President. And the President, I believe, was equally thrilled at seeing his first Atlas missile launch.
Well, I'm sure he was. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, gentlemen, something. The President had warned his military Air Force aide, General Godfrey McHugh, as he was landing here at the base, that if something happened and this shot did not go off correctly, General McHugh was going to become the PX officer at Anchorage, Alaska. So when that Atlas went overhead, the President smiled very broadly and said, McHugh is saved. So you saved him. Now tell me, what did the President say to you?
He was very interested in our normal activities, our daily alert activities, the type of duty we pull, the length of our tours, where we live, all that type of thing. He was also very interested in our past backgrounds, our former careers in the Air Force, or previous careers.
Did he ask you how close the missile had come to target?
Yes, he did.
And what did you tell him?
I told him it was about 0.8 of a mile from the target.
And how far downrange was that?
4,385 miles, sir.
And 0.8 of a mile from the target. That sounds like a very successful shoot.
Very good.
Congratulations to all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
The final stop for Mr. Kennedy in a hangar of the Vandenberg airstrip, where behind closed doors he got a look at still secret space devices we're now working on. Among them, for example, he saw a scale model of the Dinosaur, a space glider designed to orbit the Earth, fly back to Earth like a plane. A model of the Saturn launch gantry, the gantry for the largest missiles now being built in the United States, our largest space boosters. In a public area, Mr. Kennedy saw models of Atlas missile complexes demonstrating the ways these ICBMs are being emplaced for combat. And a quick look at a Titan model, too, including some very late versions. Next on the line, look at our space satellites there, the Pioneer 1, a deep space vehicle, Pioneer 5, which kept in touch with the Earth from 22 million miles away. These are scientific probing satellites, all fired by the Air Force from Vandenberg. The big problem in space, for science or for soldiers, is getting down the payload, a spacecraft or a warhead, despite the great heat of re-entry. Here, Mr. Kennedy gets a close look at a nose cone fired by an Atlas over the ocean, recovered intact. Any of these nose cones could be replaced by nuclear warheads. This nose cone blackened by the heat of re-entry, but it made it all right. The evidence before the President, we have effectively solved, though, much of the re-entry problem. To fire a missile and put it on its target takes a complex of equipment. The method is inertial guidance. Here, before Mr. Kennedy, is the equipment needed to put a Minuteman missile on its target. These part of the devices that will guide what the Air Force hopes will be our major deterrent weapon. The guidance system in the Minuteman is preset. The missile is placed in its silo, can go on the shortest possible notice. To protect the country against enemy attack, a satellite that sounds an alarm when hostile missiles are on the way. That he moves to from this guidance control display, about which we've just been telling you. And that system that sounds the alarm is the Midas. The Midas is going to give this country some warning that trouble is on the way. Probably only a few minutes warning, but some, and that's better than none. With Secretary McNamara and top Defense Department officials, the President sees some of our scientific efforts. The Discoverer capsule recovered in midair over the Pacific in August of 1961. That capsule had circled the Earth 14 times. Other spacecraft we are orbiting or planning to put into space, too. Although Vandenberg gives the President a look at our military power, it also gives him a good idea of some of the far-out space projects our scientists have in mind. Once again, more re-entry studies. And our plans for nuclear-powered satellites. That will be the next big step, the exotic fuels. The first nuclear-powered satellite, called SNAP-2. SNAP will be capable of putting out a vast amount of power, 3,000 watts, and it will stay active for an entire year in space. SNAP-2 can stand temperatures of over 1,200 degrees for over 6 months. More on the President's trip in a moment after this word from Bess Myers.